Hey everyone, Chris Geo coming to you from deep beyond the veil. I want to play for you the full interview that we did on Leak Project. If you go to Leak Project's YouTube channel, first of all, please subscribe to the channel because they are an awesome, awesome, awesome channel. But they put a short version of the interview that we did, and there was a lot of information that was missing. However, as the program director and founder of TFR Live, I understand the importance of keeping member exclusive content because that's what funds the entire station. The same goes for Leak Project. If you go to leakproject.com, you'll find some awesome, awesome, awesome content that he has. I would urge everybody to go over there, sign up for a membership, or at least make a donation. I mean, just think about this. If 100 people make $1 donation, then it helps out Leak Project. And I want to see people helping Leak Project out. But at the same time, this was such an epic interview that I want to get this interview out to you. So I'm kind of like stuck right in the middle going, okay, I understand that it's members exclusive, but at the same time, the information was so epic that I wanted to get it out to everybody. So I would ask that everybody does that. Let's do this on the honor system here. Second of all, we were having technical problems during the show getting hooked up with our studio, so we wound up having to use a laptop. The audio is not my preferred quality because it just, it didn't come out with this nice studio microphone and all of that. Rex sounds great, but we sound like we're on a laptop, and I'm really disappointed about that. But when you hear the information, it's going to blow your mind. So let's get into it.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your patience. How's this for a headline? Summoning the gods on ayahuasca in the Great Pyramid of Giza. We're talking the King's Chamber, the sarcophagus. This is absolutely incredible. And I do want to let you know, ladies and gentlemen, quick disclaimer. The opinions and views of the guests are not necessarily those of Leak Project or myself. And this was something that was done as a spiritual, religious type experience, a higher level consciousness type experience. And they are just going to share with us here at the Leak Project what the experience was like. But I just feel so honored. Now, we had all sorts of gremlins at the beginning. You should definitely check out Beyond the Veil, Step into the Light on YouTube. And just real honor to have you both on the show. How the heck are you?
Well, thank you very much for having us. First of all, let me say I'm a huge fan of the show. Let me apologize to the audience as well, because the technical problems were completely on our end. So we really appreciate everybody's patience, and you're really going to get a really nice treat tonight. Everything has been very interesting since we got back from Egypt. It has been one incredible journey, and the way that everything was opening up on this journey has to be a lot more than just coincidence. I do want to make this disclaimer too right off the bat that there's two ways to look at this story that we're going to get into tonight. The first way is that it was the most elaborate psychedelic experience in the history of the world, and I'm not taking that off the table. The next way to look at it is that there was some real ancient energy work that was done on this journey, and that these were all soul contracts that we all fulfilled. There were thousands of people who were putting in their energy, who were with us, from the people that handed us the keys to these ancient sites, to the people that locked us in the pyramids and let us run completely loose, to the subterranean chamber, to the Queen's Chamber, to the King's Chamber. The subterranean chamber and the Queen's Chamber have been closed to the public since, I want to say, like 2003 or something like that. So it was a really, really amazing journey going into that in and of itself. But the energy work that was done as well, it felt like a very ancient divine plan that was being fulfilled. So it was really amazing to do that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, just the opportunity to be able to go to Egypt. Hey, that's your intro. The opportunity to go to Egypt and to go into the pyramids. And you went into the King's Chamber, and you also said the sarcophagus. So let me first of all, I'm thinking of a specific spell in the Egyptian Book of the Dead, and it's It's the Egyptian Book of the Dead, and this one spell in particular from the Egyptian Book of the Dead. Let me see if I can find it here real quick, because you actually went there and such. So I just have to ask. And but while I'm looking at this, so when you went there, and how long was the flight? How long did it take to get out there?
Oh, it was almost 24 hours total with all of the flying and everything, and all the driving that we had to do. I think we left the house at 4 o'clock in the morning this time, and then we arrived at about 4 o'clock in the morning Egyptian time.
It was a brutal flight.
It was brutal.
But
getting there.
It was the same price to fly to Italy and then get a flight from Italy to Egypt to Cairo. So we got to spend a day in Rome and go to the Colosseum and all of that.
Decompress a little bit.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. But we embarked on this journey by ourselves, and this is something that I would not recommend that anybody does.
No.
We went with no guide, we went with no group, we went just the two of us, just on the pure gnosis that we had inside of us, the faith that we had in the people that were watching along. Everything we did, we live streamed on Facebook because we wanted to create that energy field, and we went with just this knowing that everything would unlock. But I would not recommend that anybody does this. Number one, ayahuasca contains DMT, which is a controlled substance. In Egypt, they will cut your head off, literally, for drugs.
Yeah.
So it is not something that is recommended. And safety is really, really big. And what we did was extremely dangerous. And you have to go with a group because it is a completely different type of environment. It's very dangerous. Abydos, for example, is 2.5 hours into the desert. You have to have police escort to take you out there. It's some kind of deal that the government made with the Egyptian government. And it's a very, very dangerous place, but it's also an equally magical place.
Oh, it is.
When you touch those stones, it's like something that you've never experienced before. You can feel the energy radiating and resonating from the stones in the pyramids, from the stones in the temples. You can feel the information that was embedded within those stones. And that was our first intuition and instinct, was we have to go touch those stones. And that just opened up all of these doors.
So when you were there, walk us through. I've heard about those escorts because I used to be in a business where I met a lot of people that traveled around the world, and they said if you go to Egypt, you're getting a police or military escort as a tourist because of some type of, they don't want you getting abducted. Which something happened to you guys, by the way, which I think we should touch on real quick, folks. This is. All I heard was you two almost got kidnapped and almost got taken out
a couple of times. We were out in the middle of Abydos, and we were 2.5 hours in the desert. And this was after all the police escorts, after all of that. And we actually saw what I think was ISIS there, the terrorist organization, not the goddess. There were all these people in the back of a pickup truck with what looked like AK-47s or something, and they were all wearing ski masks. And that was a really chilling sight to see. But you know what I found myself feeling at that point is I felt safer there than I would if it was American police, because I know they're not looking to mess with me. I know American police are looking to mess with me. So it was a very bizarre feeling.
It's ironic.
When we went out there, there was this this police officer in Abydos, and he kept telling us, come out here to King Tut's tomb, come to King Tut's. I don't remember if it was Tut or who it was, but he was telling us, come out here into the middle of the desert, I'll take you to this special place. And we're live streaming this on Facebook. He doesn't know we're live streaming. And I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute, the tomb is in the Valley of the Kings.
Right.
The temple is in Luxor, in a different location next to Hatshepsut's temple. This doesn't make any sense that he's trying to take us out to the middle of the desert. Everybody on the live stream saw what was going on and was saying, no, get out of there, get out of there.
That's a big
He
gun.
has what looks like an MK4 is what people described it as on Facebook. I'm not too familiar with guns.
It looks like a Tommy gun.
Yeah, and he's holding it in a way that is, he's got it like this in his hand, locked and loaded with his finger on the trigger.
Yeah.
And we're sitting there thinking, why is he wanting to take us out to the middle of the desert? And so everybody just said, get out of there, get out of there, get out of there. And Sure enough, we got out of there as quickly as possible and just made a beeline for the exit. That was one instance.
Yeah.
The second instance is that we met this taxi driver, and over there, everybody's trying to scam you, literally everybody.
God.
And this is why you need to go with a group, because everybody's trying to scam you. And when you go with the group leader, especially if it's somebody who has a good reputation, especially somebody from the States, they set everything up. They set up your hotel rooms, they set up your transportation, they set everything up. So you don't have to go through that experience. But we met one taxi driver we thought we can trust.
Yeah.
So we met him in Luxor. He was driving us literally everywhere. He drove us to Abydos. He drove us to Dendera. He drove us everywhere. And so I asked him if he can drive us to Aswan, because we wanted to go down to the Temple of Isis.
About a 6-hour drive.
Yeah, about
south.
a 6.5-hour drive. So we know this guy, you know, we feel comfortable. He had us over to his house. You know, we had a great meal with his family, met his mother, you know, all this stuff. We get down to the Temple of Isis, and we do our ritual in the Temple of Isis with the ayahuasca. So we're fresh out of the ayahuasca experience. And after you do the ayahuasca, you're just, you know, on cloud nine. Your heart is opened up. You're loving everybody. I paid him twice as much as what I promised to pay him, because I was like, money doesn't matter. You know, I want to take care of this guy, you know, all this. And so he says, hey, I want to take you to my cousin's wedding. And I said, okay, sure. Yeah, that sounds like fun. Let's go to an Egyptian wedding. His cousin shows up at 11 o'clock at night. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, okay, this is a weird time for a wedding. And he says, and I tell him, congratulations. And he says, for what? And I said, well, I thought you just got married. And he goes, oh, no, that's something else. And I said, okay. And then the taxi driver looks at us and he goes, no, well, we're just going out to eat tonight. And I said, oh, okay. And I said, well, look, we can eat here at the hotel. He goes, no, I want to take you to this place around the corner. I figured, okay, no harm. We've been in this guy's car a million times before, no problem at all.
And granted, I had already told him that night, I said, I don't feel good about tonight. I'd rather just stay at the hotel and eat. And so let's just stay at the hotel, whatever we do.
And the taxi driver, remember that night? He was trying to get us as high as possible on hashish.
On hashish.
Now, we smoke hash regularly, so it's no big deal. But it was like this extra push to smoke more, smoke more.
Get as high as possible.
But I didn't want to smoke that night. I didn't want to cloud the experience up. So I was, you know, keeping my head together. So we get in the back of his car, and I notice our hotel room is right on the Nile, and he drives us into town, and we're driving in circles. And I'm sitting there looking at Sheree and saying, you know, something's wrong. It's almost like they couldn't find the place that we were looking for, which is okay, except for the fact that they drove us around town for about 20 minutes. And then we popped out back on the same main road that's on the Nile.
Yeah.
So we've got our hotel room here on one end. We've got where we popped out on the other end. And this whole little circle here, I could tell was nothing more than to disorient us.
Yeah.
So
confuse us.
Yeah. So we start driving, and I ask him, where are we going? He says, oh, there's a great restaurant that's right down the street. It's a great buffet, you know, all this Egyptian food, this and that.
The world famous 5-star
world famous 5-star restaurant. Okay. I need to let my people in America know where we're going. What's the name of the restaurant? I don't know. No, I'm sorry. I take that back. First, I asked him the address. He didn't know. That's reasonable.
Okay.
Then I asked him the name of it so I can look it up on Google. I don't remember the name of it. It's just a really nice restaurant.
Really good. You'll love it. Don't worry.
So I look at her and I say, hey, there's something wrong here.
Is there something wrong here?
So we're driving out of Aswan now, and Aswan is right next to Sudan.
Yeah.
If we were to cross over into Sudan, that's it. Forget
just an hour or two.
We'd be gone.
South, and we'd
so I look at her, and her instinct was, hey, I'm not feeling well. I need to throw up. And so the car stops. As soon as the car stopped, boom, we get out of the car, make a beeline for the
nearest business.
The nearest business. It was a little bar. And he comes running in after us. He's bawling in tears, like something is seriously wrong. And he's saying, please get back in my car. Please get back in my car. Why don't you trust me? Please get back in my car.
Yeah.
Well, earlier that day, he had told Sheree that his wife had called from Luxor, and his wife needed money. And he had told us previous to that he hadn't had any work, hadn't had any tourists, because tourists aren't going down there, and that he had been borrowing a bunch of money from friends. And he's very glad that we came, because, you know, he finally gets some business and all this. And so we get out, and he's bawling. And then we go back to the hotel. So we go back to the hotel, and we get somebody else to drive us, not with him. We would not get back in his car.
Mm.
So we go and we sit down and we have something to eat at the hotel. He comes walking in and he's got this pissed predator look in his face. And he's looking at me and he's like, "Why don't you trust me?" And I'm like, "It's not that we don't trust you, man. It's that we don't trust your cousin. Your cousin didn't know where we were going, this and that, et cetera, et cetera." So we get up. It was a buffet that we were eating at. We get up, we, refill our food, come back, sit down. He wouldn't eat with us, which gets important here in just a moment. But I try to hand him some food. I'm like, "Here, eat with us. It's okay. It's no big deal." And so then we start feeling Valium. Now we're experienced psychonauts, so we
Yeah.
understand what Valium feels like.
Mhm.
And I look at her and I'm like, "Do you feel like we're on Valium?" And she says, "Yeah, I think something's weird.
Feels like, some
it
kind
feels
of
like something,
benzobarbiturate
yeah,
feeling.
something's going on." So I said, "Okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to make a beeline for the door. We're going to go back to our hotel. We're going to lock that hotel up and make sure nobody gets in there." We go to the hotel, put a chair under the door, and that's that. The next morning, he is sitting outside, and you can see this little courtyard right out of our window. He's staring at our window with this predator look in his
waiting.
in his eyes.
Mhm.
And we're like, "Okay, something is seriously wrong." And we called another taxi. We got a car and went straight to the airport, and boom, we flew to
Mhm.
Cairo.
Yeah.
But
We were
what,
on the next flight out to
yes,
Cairo.
but what I think happened is that he owed money to some people.
Mhm.
They went to his wife, and his wife said he's in Aswan with some tourists. And so they told his wife, "Well, just tell him to bring the tourists to us, and your debt will be taken care of."
Yep.
It was intense. It was a very, very scary situation. And but the thing is, though, she kept her cool.
Yeah.
And that was the whole thing. Conquering the fear, keeping your cool
Mhm.
under all circumstances is the way we navigated throughout Egypt. And it was a recurring theme of keeping your cool and just
Using your
navigating,
intuition too.
using your intuition, navigating out of these experiences, out
Mhm.
of these situations. What do you make of all this?
Oh, that's fascinating, and it is no wonder they have an agreement with the government. When you go out there, they set you up with a bodyguard, because it sounds like at least the experience you had. My goodness, that's very unfortunate. And my aunt and uncle went out there and did a tour. My aunt's a principal. My uncle is an architect, and they went out there several years ago with their family, and they had a guided tour with a bunch of people, so they didn't do anything off the beaten track. And they're straight and narrow, I mean, like they might have coffee or Diet Coke, but that's like their extreme. We're having Diet Coke in the Great Pyramid, man. Incredible. Got that genetically modified E. coli feces. I love it.
we did ayahuasca ceremonies at the Temple of Hatshepsut, at the Temple of Isis, and in the Great Pyramid as well. For people that don't know what ayahuasca is, it's a medicinal medicine that they use down in the Amazon. People go down there when they have depression, when they have addictions, things like that, and it's a remarkable medicine
for them.
Now, there's two components to the ayahuasca. You have the Be Happy, which is called the ayahuasca vine. This is an MAOI, so what it does is it neutralizes the stomach acids. But the shaman down there call the Be Happy the healer. They don't call it the actual ayahuasca. I mean, they call it the actual ayahuasca. They don't call it the helper, because it's actually helping the stomach to it helps to dull the stomach acid so the DMT can become orally active. Then they use this chacruna. The chacruna is actually what contains the psychoactive component of it. And they call that the helper, which is, I think, backwards, but that's the way that they see it.
Yeah.
But there's something about the ayahuasca vine that provokes healing, that provokes, peace, that provokes spiritual awakening, things like that. And it's becoming more and more and more common that people are traveling down there for this amazing healing type of experience. Now, what the ayahuasca does is not only heal you from the inside, from traumas and things like that. That's the first level. The second level is, for us anyways, it started to unlock all of these memories of past lives. It started to unlock all of these memories of ancient knowledge that was hidden within us. And for me personally, and it may not mean too much to the audience, but after we got all of this gnosis, a lot of it, I would start to confirm this later in books. So I would start to get some gnosis and start talking about it on the show. And listeners would call in and say, hey, you need to check out the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, because what you're talking about is in the Emerald Tablets. You need to check out what Terence McKenna said in this particular interview, because what you're talking about is here what Terence McKenna said. So from my perspective, I'm seeing and getting all of this information, then confirming it in books later, which to me, it made it even more real from my particular experience. She's very well read. I don't read anything. I try not to bring anything.
Let me jump in on that.
Mm-hmm.
I got to interrupt. I apologize because it's important. You just brought up the Emerald Tablets, and then you said your experience, you felt like gave you downloads from previous information that you had got before. Is that what I was gathering?
It's not necessarily downloads. It's information that our ancient souls already have. We have this information inside of us
already.
What the ayahuasca helped do was remove all the clutter that was blocking all of that information that we've been carrying around in our ancient souls. And this goes for everybody. And it's not just us that has the information. It's everybody that has this information inside of them.
Well, it's if you look into quantum physics, if you look into the simulation theory, the holographic simulation, each sum can create the whole, and your DNA holds these memories. So yeah, absolutely. That's incredible. I totally get that. So, but what I just want to confirm again, when you said the Emerald Tablets, and then you said this experience resonated with that and somehow, so the Emerald Tablets, which ones are you referring, like what was it out of the Emerald Tablets that just hit a home run with you on that experience?
There were several elements within the Emerald Tablets.
When we were at the Temple of Hatshepsut, we actually opened the video up with us sitting there with
reading
from the Emerald Tablets as we're about to drink ayahuasca.
See, they talk about, Thoth talks about the children of men, and he talks about the children of the light. Now, you were just reading earlier today, Hermes and you're like, hey, check it out. Yeah. Hermes was talking about all the stuff that we've been talking about. And how did Hermes phrase it?
There are ones that are mortal and bodies that are dissolvable, and bodies on the earth that are not dissolvable.
Yes. So we have two different types of consciousness that we're working with here. And this is according to a lot of different ancient writings. I didn't know any of this, but within the ayahuasca experience, I started unlocking the nature of reality. I started unlocking the fact that we're living inside of a computer simulation. Science is backing this up. The double slit experiment. There was another one, Professor Gates. And Professor Gates started to analyze the fabric of space-time. And he realized that there was a computer code, a self-correcting computer code within the fabric of space-time. Now, it's not just any computer code. It's a computer code that was written by a guy named Claude Shannon in the 1940s. Now, what is the probability that he's going to find this computer code within the fabric of space-time itself? So that was more confirmation that we're living in a simulated reality. Well, in a simulated reality, just like any other video game, you have two types of consciousness. You have what I term as non-player characters, which are people that they don't have that consciousness inside of them. You can talk to them all day long. You can give them all the gnosis. You can try to wake them up, and they just simply will not wake up because they're incapable of it.
They're running a program.
So there's no reason to waste your time trying to wake up an NPC because they're just not going to get it. And then you have what I term as organic consciousness. Organic consciousness would be a real player in the game. So let's say you're playing World of Warcraft and you've got all these people at the keyboard, and those are real players. Those are organic consciousness within the simulation itself. Now, I just came across all of this in the ayahuasca realm. Now I'm confirming it in the Emerald Tablets. I'm confirming it in Hermes' writing, so on and so forth. So there are, a couple of things, details about the nature of reality that really lined up with the tablets themselves in that regard.
So walk us through, let's go to your very...
Oh, I'm sorry.
You go ahead.
I think the biggest lesson that people can take out of this is don't waste your time and energy trying to wake up somebody who will not wake up. Right. When I realized that we have two different types of consciousness here, then I realized that the energy that I was exerting to try to wake people up, to try to help people, to try to get people to that next level is better spent on people that are receptive to the information instead of just banging on the exact same door. It could be family members, it could be anything like that. And, you just have these people that just simply don't get it. So what I urge the audience is, use your energy wisely. Use your energy in a place that it's going to be fruitful, instead of just sitting there and essentially just yelling at a door or yelling at a brick wall, trying to wake up a brick wall. It's not going to happen. People are programmed in a certain way.
People are programmed in a certain way. And I was even talking to my mom about that yesterday, because she read a book, I think by Robert Whitaker, describing how, you know, certain pharmaceuticals are just have some extremely bad side effects. And she was a nurse for 40 years. You know what I mean? So when she read that book, after she read the book, she was like, oh my gosh, there's not a Jesus. It's kind of like the, you know, the mindset after reading how different things are in perspectives versus what she was taught. So that's fascinating. And I want to get into this. Let's dive in and walk us through the first experience that you had, and just put us in the picture with you. And when I say summoning the gods, I mean literally you were summoning the gods. I mean that was Thoth. Oh, the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, Hermes Trismegistus, incredible. That knowledge is fantastic. So if you were seeing that visually, I can just imagine Thoth, or if you want to call him Tahuti or Thoth. Just don't call him late for dinner. Because if he's hungry, he's very powerful, and the sum of all things is 42. So, like, let's get into this. This is incredible. I'm excited. I'm buckling up. Well, I'm not buckling up.
Do you know why the sum of all things?
I don't wear my seatbelt. You heard it. Sorry.
Do you know why the sum of all things is 42?
Why is the sum of all things 42?
In computer code, 42 is also the asterisk symbol. The asterisk symbol, it means a variable of anything. It's a wild card variable.
That's awesome. I didn't know that. See, I just got schooled. Thank you. It's awesome. No, that's awesome. I had no idea. That totally makes sense. And you got the infinity symbol that can be connected with that. And four times 2 is 8. 8 is the infinity symbol. That's awesome.
Exactly.
Yeah. So what is the meaning of life? 42.
Anything
you want it to be.
Anything you make of it.
Nice. Nice. So the dungeon masters, the money funders, they've got all this money and control around the world that keeps people in a box. And this ancient knowledge, these ancient teachings, and for example, the Great Pyramids and these ceremonies that they did back in the day, the aristocrats, I mean, they were probably astral projecting into different dimensions and downloading information and bringing it back. Or I know, like you said, it's in here, but it's also out there. So you can call it download, upload, whatever. You know, it's potato. It's just labels and words. I think it's just a good way to represent something. So this is fascinating.
The contact with the Egyptian pantheon didn't begin until about 3 or 4 years into the journey. As I said, there was a progression that you have to break yourself down. You have to face your traumas. I faced some horrific things that went on with my childhood that I didn't realize had gone on. And I confronted all of that in the ayahuasca realm. It comes down to the ego. And the ego is a program. And while we're in the matrix, we're overlaid with all of these different programs from the experiences that we're having. So if you were, and this is a very extreme example, but let's say you were raped as a young girl. So you may be, you may treat men differently because of that experience, and your actions are tied into that experience, which could be potentially blocking you from being able to meet the guy that actually is going to treat you like the goddess that you are. So the ayahuasca breaks all of these chains and makes you realize these tethers of these behavioral patterns that you're essentially tied to. And in my experience, it appeared as my leg tethered into this box that I had to open the box up and go, oh my God, I went through that kind of abuse. Okay, I have to go through it. Once that ego was broken down, then the warrior started to be built up. So it was a blank slate first. And then there was a period of time when there were demon faces. I was in hell. I had a bubble around me. I could see demons coming in. I was given a sword. I was shown that I can put the sword through these demons, all these things. And whether that was a real experience or not, it was still proving to myself, do you have the bravery? Can you face this down? Can you put your fear behind you? Can you remove fear from the equation and realize your own power and how powerful we all really are over any of these negative entities? Then that's when Isis appeared. And Isis is, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but she's the divine feminine element of our consciousness. And we've been working so off balance. The divine masculine is the logic, the reason, all of that. The divine feminine is
the caring and the loving and the perspective of healing. It's that motherly healing aspect that it's inside each and every one of us. Just like the masculine is Osiris, the feminine is Isis.
It's the intuition.
The intuition.
So imagine a soldier that is, a warrior, and he's got that divine feminine aspect of his consciousness. At that point, he only goes and fights to protect himself or his family or his country or any of that. We don't go to war for taking people's resources. We don't go to war to conquer. We become the protectors as the men, anyways, and the women too. But we become the protecting element instead of the aggressive element. That's where the balance of the divine feminine comes in. But we as a society and a humanity have been so off balance that all we see is kill, 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 destroy, 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 burn my tennis shoes, wear pink hats. I hate you because you voted for Trump. I hate you because you're against Trump. I mean, we're tearing each other apart because we're so off balance. So realistically, these entities or deities, they're representations of our own consciousness. But they are very, very, very powerful aspects of our consciousness. And that's another reason. Let me say this too. I hope I'm not jumping around too much, but everything we do is magic. Everything we do is spell casting. Every time we talk, and the media knows this, and they repeat these spells over and over and over again. And that's why during the Gulf War, we had shock and awe, repeated over and over again, shock and awe, because they were summoning Shekinah. Isis is the mother goddess. She is the divine feminine. She's the caring, the loving, the nurturer. She's the unconditional love. The entire world is screaming, fear Isis, kill Isis, destroy Isis. Isis is evil. Isis is a terrorist organization. Isis represents the exact opposite of what she actually represents. On an energetic level, we are diminishing further and further and further the divine feminine aspect of our consciousness, the love, the intuition, and all of that. It's all magic spells, whether you believe it, whether you believe in magic or not. Magic spells are being cast upon you every single day. But the way you break those spells is by realizing that these spells are being cast. That's it. These archons, they can't affect you. The only thing that they can do is just put ideas and thoughts in your mind. Suggestions. Fear, anxiety. Oh, I'm not good enough. I'm so weak. I'm pathetic. I'm this, I'm that, etc., etc. And then your actions are based upon those influences that the archons are sitting there putting into your head. So the archons can't do anything. But if you realize that the archons, that's all that they can do, then you break the spell that they have over you. And this was vital when we went to Egypt. We had to remove the fear. We had to remove all of that. And when these entities appeared, it was only after removing all of that fear from ourselves.
Wow, that's fascinating. And I want to hear more about that experience with the demons. Like you said, you were fighting off demons, and what was the most frightening experience you had? And describe these demons to us, because I myself have had some pretty spooky experiences, completely, nothing mind altering except for my own mind with demons. So,
well, in the ayahuasca realm,
man,
there's two types of demons, and the scariest demons, the ones that really strike fear right into the core of your soul, are the demons that are inside of you. All of your darkness, all of your trauma, all of that. Sometimes they'll manifest as with a form. Other times it's the experiences that you have to go in there. That's one kind of demon. The demons that are not scary, the demons that are, they're nothing, is the ones that come from a weird frequency dimension. And this is what the experience took me to. So in this particular experience, I was in trance, and you didn't drink with me that day. She was just kind of tending to everything. And I was sitting there holding the space in the lotus position, and I could see two portals appearing in front of me. And one was just the normal standard portal. The other one looked like a demon face. It had this really sinister look to it. And I looked at it and I thought to myself, so what? So I'm supposed to be afraid of you? Is that what you're appearing in front of me for? There's nothing you can do to me. I can't be afraid. Instead of moving to the other portal instead of moving towards, you know, the light, I said, you know what? I'm going to go into that portal just to prove to myself that I have no fear. And I went into this portal. When I went into this portal, all of a sudden I found myself surrounded. Now, this is all happening in the mind's eye. So I'm sitting pretty much in the lotus position during all of this. But what's interesting about ayahuasca, especially at very high doses, is this reality disappears. You close your eyes and that's it. You are in that other reality. This reality no longer exists. So I found myself sitting inside of this bubble, and it was a protective bubble. And there were, you know, the traditional way that you would describe hell, a fire all around, these demons coming in with these faces. It's hard to describe them. They were just these reptilian looking huge entities. And a sword appeared in front of me. And
They look like reptilians.
it was very reptilian, but
Like
not
bipedal reptilians? Are you talking like Barney reptiles? I mean,
no.
that would
Like,
scare me even more if I saw a bunch of Barney reptiles. I'd be freaked out.
like
No.
they looked like those little lizards, you know, with the pokey with the
like a Gila lizard.
yeah, with the things poking out, except for huge. And they were
Yeah.
coming out of the fire, so I didn't see their whole form. It was just faces coming out of the fire at me. And these two swords appeared. There was a light sword and there was a physical sword. And obviously I grabbed the light sword. And then the voice said, look, you can put your light sword through them and watch what happens. And they couldn't come near me because they were hitting this bubble and that's it. But they were coming towards this bubble. And so I would take my light sword, put one through, and then poof, they would disappear.
Mhm.
And the lesson, whether this was metaphoric or this was an actual realm that was being traveled to, was look at the power that you have inside of yourself. You have nothing to fear over these things. They can't do anything to us
Mhm.
except for give us those negative thought patterns. That's the
Right.
only power that they have. But they can give you the illusion that they have all of this power and that you have none.
What you just said describes me a bit. To me, it reminds me of the description of the dark brotherhood, or the serpents that work through blood, work through the shadows, that made signed a contract or whatever you want to call it back before Atlantis, and have great power, but also have given up their soul, basically, or at least their soul is certainly under contract as they're being a part of it. But, at the same time, like somebody was making it, oh man, we're slaying the reptiles. Well, not all reptilians are bad. And I mean, there's good reptilian entities out there as well. So I hear, but there's, I don't know. But so I think that there's good and bad.
I don't trust anything that sucks my energy.
Yeah.
So there could be some good reptilian, but I don't trust any of them. I don't trust. I don't
There
trust
are vegan hippie reptilians in Colorado. There's some vegan reptilians. They've, since they legalized something out here, they've just really calmed down. They were on the dark path, but they finally mellowed out. So some of them, that's why Denver's getting so popular. People are like, oh man, it's the underground bunkers. No, it's because they legalized something. But anyway, let's get back. I'm just having fun. I mean, this is a lot of information. I mean, if this is how I deal with it. So this is incredible. So like, okay, you're talking about those lizards that kind of had like the horn things poking out of their heads, kind of like the old school dinosaurs.
Pretty much.
Kind
They
of
were
like a dinosaur
huge.
lizard thing.
Yeah.
And you saw them too? You both saw them?
No, I've never seen them. Never seen a demon.
No, this was just one
No,
experience.
that was just
However,
his.
the Greys have been a recurring theme from day one.
Yes.
Now, I never understood why they were there. I never had any interaction with them. They would just appear and just make their presence known. So one time I was sitting there again, she didn't drink with me. I was sitting deep in trance. All of a sudden, this Native American drum beat, very kind of dark, very repetitive, boom, 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 comes on. And this was, we were playing music. So this was music that was being played. And all of a sudden, the light in the room, and this was opened eye, which I thought was very interesting because usually this is all closed eye. Open eye, all of a sudden the light in the hallway starts flashing on me like a strobe light. And I see this gray walking out and just staring at me. And I'm asking myself, am I seeing something that exists within this sphere that exists outside of our ability to observe with our eyes, or
perception.
is this a manifestation of the experience that I'm having? But it seems like almost every time up until we went to Egypt, the Greys would always make themselves known. And I wanted to talk to them because I wanted to understand them, but they would never talk to me. But then when the ISIS entity appeared, she said, don't talk to the Greys, don't have anything to do with them.
Don't play
They
with them.
vibrate at the frequency of demons. And so these things, I think they're robots. I think they exist here in this plane. They exist outside of our frequency. They have the ability to shift in and out. I don't think they come from another planet. I think they're here, and they're essentially AI manifestations of the machine and kind of little like worker bees. And they don't have a positive or negative intention, but they have a programmed intention to the point to where they don't feel empathy, sympathy, or anything like that to what they're doing. So we hear about these horrible abduction stories, and I think it has credence. They have credence because these things don't care. It's the same way as, you know, I'm sure you've seen those videos in Japan where they take like a live animal and just start chopping it up while they're preparing the food.
Eating it.
You know, no thought as to what that animal's experiencing, no thought to the pain that it's having, nothing like that. It's just robotic.
They are highly intelligent. It's like very, very high IQ, but very, very no EQ, emotional quotient at all.
But they're all hive mind though.
Yeah, and
They're all
part of
controlled by
one
one hive
mind.
mind. They have one mind. They think all alike.
The Greys, it's interesting because I've talked to many people with experiences, the Greys, and some people have had what you could say very traumatic experiences. You know, people that have had a lifelong contacts where they've had horrible experiences, their families had horrible experiences. I've talked to people that have had good experiences with the Greys, and the biobot technology, genetically, they're probably physical bodies, but they're, you know, there might be some transhumanism mixed in there, but yeah, they're biobots. And, you know, I think that we were created as robots, essentially, for the gods originally, and they made us way too good. And you know what I have to say to that? Pine cone. I mean, they gave us this very powerful pineal gland that we have the opportunity to be at a higher level. And if you can read these tablets. So when you were contacting these Greys, and I want to talk about ISIS again, because ISIS is, I have a wonderful appreciation for ISIS. I've got an awesome painting of Wonder Woman, which I think is a Hollywood representation of ISIS. And it's interesting that you brought up ISIS, because when I first researched ISIS and I read a story, Inanna, which is ISIS, and it was the very first day I read a story about her online on YouTube. The next day I met a lady that painted this Wonder Woman painting, and she gave me the painting, and it was just like you said, the universe talking to you. You know what I mean? It was like, what a cool connection. And since then I've had a fascinating connection. So I'd love to hear more about that experience. That's amazing.
To me, coincidence is just the universe tickling you and teasing at you. That's what I see coincidences. I don't believe in coincidence. I think everything happens for a reason. And as we went on this journey to Egypt, you can call it coincidental, but everything just fell right into place to take us exactly where we needed to go and let us do exactly what we needed to do there. And we didn't even know what we were gonna do there at first. We flew in blind, had no idea about anything there. We didn't know where anything was. We didn't know who to connect with. And we just used our intuition completely to get us through it. And because of the trust that I had in him, and because of the trust he had in me, we got out of every single thing scot-free without a scratch on us.
Can we go back to the Greys for a minute? Because I want to share two stories with you that I think you might find interesting.
Yes.
And we usually don't talk about this stuff on Beyond the Veil because for some reason our audience, they don't like this subject whatsoever. I posted a video of this weird flash of light that we picked up while we were in Egypt on the motion camera, and I was analyzing it, and people just went crazy about it. So I don't know, they don't like the Grey topic for some reason, but this is a good forum. I think.
We love it. Yeah, that'd be great.
So we were drinking ayahuasca for about a week straight,
every night,
and doing hardcore work. We were out on the boat, and it was the most gorgeous night. There was a meteor shower. And we live out in the middle of nowhere. So we were watching this meteor shower. The owls were hooting. The eagles were, the wolves were howling. Everything was just going off, and just looking at this meteor shower. And it was the most amazing experience. Then out of the corner of my eye, I see this light out in the woods, and I'm like, I see something over there. Now, mind you, we are under the influence of ayahuasca. Right. So when you see something like this, you always have to question, at least anybody sane always has to question, am I really seeing this, or is this part of my experience? And so we're looking at her, and I'm looking at her, and I'm asking her, do you see that light? Yes, I see that light. Do you see those beings standing there? Yes, I do. Okay, so they were standing way off on the shore at the end of the, and that was that. So we finish our experience. And then about 2 or 3 days later, this was after we were done with our 1 week long, because we like to work with ayahuasca in succession. So we'll do it for every day for a week, and then we won't do it for 3 or 4 months, and then
Right.
every day for a week, because the experiences become episodic at that point.
Mhm.
And so they start to make sense one after another. So we're sitting there, and I'm laying down on the couch, and all of a sudden, I have this dream that these 3 gray aliens come walking into the back door. And I look up and I look at her, she comes walking down the stairs. I look at her in the dream and I go, Halloween costumes? It's too early for Halloween. Why are they wearing Halloween costumes? And that's it, lights out. She comes downstairs the next morning. She says, I had the weirdest dream last night. I said, what did you see? She says,
I dreamed that the door wasn't locked, so I came downstairs to see if the door was locked or not. And then these 3 grays came through the door, and you started fighting with them or something. And then I saw a flash of light, and that was it.
yeah, and she said, you said something about Halloween
Yeah,
costumes.
you said something about Halloween costumes. I don't know.
Now, that could be part of the ayahuasca experience.
Maybe.
And the reason I say that is because I like to keep a nice sane mind
Yeah.
here, because we are delving into realms that are interdimensional here and into deep psychedelic experiences.
This was chilling.
But when you have 2 people confirming this, what do you make of this, Rex?
Okay, so when I think about things, I look at both sides of the spectrum and then usually come to a conclusion somewhere in the center. But this, what you're telling me, does remind me of a lot of the other experiences that I've heard. I've never done it, so I can't say from personal experience, but a lot of people say they have met what they believe are the grays. And the grays could, you're contacting them and they probably have this technology where they can be in a frequency that is like right in front of you, but you're not going to see it because they're in a little bit of a different dimension, kind of like when you're changing the radios stations and, just changing the station a little bit, you can pick it up. So I think you're picking up on something with your brain. I think that it's activating your pineal gland where you're getting a connection there and they're watching you. And then once again, folks, I'm a conspiracy theorist here, so disclaimer, but this is just what's going through my mind. But I'm thinking of like, they're making sure that you're staying where you're supposed to. You're not going too far out. You're not getting too much data. And because, they want to keep us in check. So they're like, okay, what are they doing? We're observing them. And now this is also opening up parts of your mind. I would assume that, usually you only see 0.01% of the electromagnetic light spectrum. So you're possibly seeing different parts of the light spectrum that are activated when this chemical is connected to your brain, which causes a chemical reaction, which activates a certain part of your body, which gives you an option to see a certain frequency. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. But that you both saw it, I've heard of people having collective dreams. But I also, when you said the costumes thing, that made me think about the experience I had when I was just, I wasn't even 2 years old. I was just I was a toddler, and I was in my crib, and I've brought this up before, and I was looking at these 3 beings, and I don't know what they were, but I asked my parents later in life if we had life-size Star Wars figures, so that's kind of the same thing, like costumes, little kid, seeing these 3 things staring at me and stuff. It's just bizarre, but that's fascinating. So
it is so.
That happened to me as a child too.
That happened to him.
They actually took me to a psychologist, not a psychiatrist, but a psychologist, because I kept telling him that little people were coming into my room at night. So I was like 4 or 5 years old, and here I am telling him little people's coming into my room at night. So take that for what it's worth. Maybe I am just bonkers. I don't know. But I had another interesting experience. I go upstairs in the middle of the night. So I don't know why I went upstairs. It just felt like going upstairs. And I see this small gray standing in the foyer room between the bedroom and the stairs, because I was sleeping on the couch that night. And not because we were arguing, but just because I happened to fall asleep on the couch. And so I go and I look and I see this small, like 2.5 foot gray with long black hair like hers. And I'm looking at her going, what are you? And she waves her hand like this, and I find myself back in waking up on the couch. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I saw a gray with long hair, and I've never even heard of this concept of grays with hair. And I looked it up, and sure enough, other people have seen these grays with hair before. So we speculate
that genetically, I've got a little bit of gray in me. And they did this way back in like the 60s. My grandparents were actually living on a military base at the time at Vandenberg Air Force Base. And my grandmother was the vice president's secretary of Lockheed Martin at the time. And I believe that there was some gray and government involvement in genetics, and that they chose certain families to inject DNA, gray DNA into, and just to see what happens a couple generations down the line. And then they had my father about a year later, and then I was born 21 years after that. And I felt like I have a weird genetic disorder too, which causes my joints to be very, very flexible.
Yeah, she's very fun.
I'm a lot of fun. But
Hello.
yeah, and so it's like there's that too, and it's a disorder of collagen production. And you would think if a gray alien race was concerned about being able to survive in this 3D and 4D environment for very long, they'd want to have enough collagen. And so giving their genes to a human would probably cause some collagen issues, because they have really thin skin, and they don't seem like they can stay in our dimension for that long without suffering something. And so I've always had this feeling like, something's wrong with my family, something's wrong with me. And after that experience, it was about 2 or 3 months after we had that experience with the Greys, that I had this dream that I was on a spaceship or something. I've never had these dreams. Like, I never, ever have these dreams. And I was on a spaceship, and there was this baby, like a 2-year-old. It looked like a 2-year-old, but it did not look like a human 2-year-old. It looked like a cross between a human 2-year-old with the hair of a human, but the face was completely gray. And they wanted me to hold it. And so I kind of leaned in with my arms on each side of it, just leaning in and looking at it like, what are you? And they said, she's of you. They didn't say she's yours. They didn't say she's your child. They said, she's of you. And so I held her for a little bit, and I was like, oh, that's kind of cool, but weird. And then I woke up. I saw a flash, and then I woke up.
Well, and there's one thing that we've never really talked about before, but I hope you don't mind me saying.
Go ahead.
She's been pregnant twice.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, not pregnant.
Not pregnant anymore.
No miscarriage, no bleeding, no nothing.
They can
like
tell
that.
that my uterus was enlarged for a while, and then it looks like I had some kind of an abortion or some kind of,
and it's always at the very beginning. So it's always within the first month before there's any kind of,
2 months,
she'll get weird hormonal stuff, and then she'll go to the doctor, and the doctor will ask, were you just pregnant? Because this is all showing signs that you've been pregnant.
Yeah.
No.
Let me jump in on that real quick, just to confirm what you're saying, because I have a friend that has had the exact same experiences happen. And what you're talking about a whole, hey, this is of you, and then holding it. There was an interview that I did a couple years ago with a gentleman that's done thousands of regression sessions, and they've had the exact same experience. And when you said what you saw, that gray with the long hair, the first thing that came into my mind was, that's probably a product of you. And so do you have Rh negative blood, and are you a Scorpio by chance?
I'm O negative, actually.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
You have extra copper in your blood. So you also have extra, like, you probably are pretty crazy with electronics as well.
When I'm upset, I notice that things frizzle, and lights will even flicker if I'm screaming at him. We've had lights flicker before just from me screaming at him. So I try not to do that too much. But yeah, it's a weird thing, because I've never been into aliens, UFOs. I actually purposely avoided that kind of thing. I didn't like the movie Independence Day. I didn't, I wanted to leave before it was even halfway through. I didn't want to have anything to do with aliens. Aliens have never been my thing. And I'm wondering if maybe there's a block there, and that's why, because they don't want me to really figure out what they're doing, and they don't want me to focus on that. They want to just observe me from afar.
I think what's going on with the grays is that when the simulation that we're living in was created, these things were meant to be able to go in and make physical changes to the matrix whenever they're needed. They had a purpose for their creation, but their hive mind became infected with a virus, as did the entire matrix itself. And that's why we have so much chaos, because it was not supposed to be like this. You're supposed to have light and darkness. You're supposed to have challenges. You know, that's what helps us evolve spiritually and all that. But the type of darkness that we're experiencing now is, I mean, the creators of the Matrix could not have fathomed this type of darkness would take place. But these grays, they figured out a way to be able to exist in dimensions and infect dimensions that they are not supposed to be in. So they're supposed to be working in the background, but now they figured out how to get into the foreground. Not only have they figured out how to get into the foreground, but they've been able to figure out how to get up and down to all the dimensions, all up and down the line, by hopping on people's consciousness. Like, they have a spiritual technologies that allow them to essentially, it's like you know, they're getting through firewalls essentially. Like on your computer, you have a program, you have a firewall, it's not supposed to pass that firewall. They figured out ways around that firewall, and part of that is injecting their essence into human bodies.
So this is, first of all, I thought this was going to be an exciting podcast, but you've all taken it to the next level. So this is incredible. This is incredible. So I mean, you're talking about some really heavy stuff. And another thing that I'm thinking of after what you just told me also is Sheree, right? I said that right?
Yes.
Okay, good. So I'm so bad with names. I mean, sometimes I can barely speak English because I'm, you know, like, it's my home language. But you're there for a reason. And if you've got these connections and this extra energy and stuff like that, and this experience that you had, it makes me think that kind of happened because you were doing work for the Matrix. I mean, for the world. You're wanting to kind of reset things and make things a better place. And that was a big part of your trip as well. It wasn't just to go out there and be like, yo, man, I mean, there was a lot to it.
If you think what we've said so far is crazy or deep, any way you want to look at it, and I urge the viewers to look at it in any perspective that they want. If they want to see it as a psychedelic experience, that's fine. If they want to see it as energy work, that's fine. But yes, the reason for going to Egypt was, first of all, to touch the stones themselves. But then when we got to the Temple of Hatshepsut, we realized, and we did our ayahuasca ceremony at the Temple of Hatshepsut, more information about the way the Matrix is set up started to unfold. The weirdest thing happened at the Temple of Hatshepsut. We did a 4-hour ayahuasca ceremony, and we've got this little Bose speaker that we were playing, and from our cell phones as well. So we've got our music playing in the background. We've got part of the temple reserved. In this particular instance, we only had part of the temple reserved. We had the entire Temple of Isis, and we had the entire Great Pyramid to ourselves. But in this particular one, because it was kind of like a side thing, that wasn't our target. Our target was the Temple of Isis and the Great Pyramid. But this just happened to open up for us. So we're playing our music for 4 hours. 4 hours. And then we turn off our speaker, and it always tells you how much battery is left on the speaker. And it says battery 100%.
After playing for 4 hours.
And I'm like, this is weird. I look at my phone. My phone is still completely, totally charged.
Yep, mine was too.
I realized
100%.
at that point that we are inside of a charging station. That's what the Temple of Hatshepsut is. It was a charging station.
It was a battery charging station.
And we met an Egyptologist while we were there, and he says, I want to show you something. He goes, you guys are from America, right? I want to show you the cross. There's the cross here. And, you know, thinking we're Christian. And so he shows us the cross. And she looks on the other side, on the other wall. She sees, they show us the symbol.
The cross.
On the other side of the wall, there's a negative symbol. And we're like, oh. Here's confirmation. This is a charging station.
And that's in the sacrificial area, like where they used to do sacrifices and things like that. One side of it is positive, the other side is negative.
That's what they say it's a sacrifice.
They're probably taking that energy and doing something with it, be like, and it was like going up to something. Like,
yeah.
Right.
So Egypt is essentially a battery. You have Upper Egypt and Lower Egypt, positive and negative charge. It's supposed to flow through the Nile. The Nile waters is what's important. Oh, you know what? You want to hear something about blow your mind? We go to the pyramid, and we went to the pyramid twice. When we first got there, and then 3 weeks later, we looped back to Cairo, and that's when we actually did the ayahuasca ceremony. So we get to the pyramid and something came over me. I don't know what it was. We get up to the king's chamber and I just immediately throw her into the sarcophagus. And there's people there. You're not supposed to do that. There's people there and they're running up to us. Hey. I look at them and I say, leave us. It was, I don't know where this came from. Leave us.
This authority.
And he's just standing there looking at me and I'm going, and you can feel the whole chamber start to vibrate. The chamber is made up in a way to where you can go, take a breath, and the is still resonating into the chamber. So you can stack them on top of each other.
Yeah.
And then when we did the ayahuasca and we did the 4 hours in uninterrupted, we were making that whole thing shake.
Yeah.
So anyways, I'm getting ahead of myself. So we come out of there.
Was that how you were making it shake?
With the yeah.
With the sound vibration.
The whole room was just shaking. The sarcophagus was shaking. And so I'm like, okay, wow, this is huge here. This is amazing. And this is in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
You've got tourists coming in. You've got people crawling all. I mean, the energy is so messed up in there when there's other people in there.
Yeah.
So I mean, all this happened in like a matter of 5 minutes, and I'm like, okay, I know what we need to do here in the pyramid. We need to go to all 3 chambers first, but we need to make this happen. So we walk out of the pyramid. So the next day I go over there to meet the contact that said that he can open up the doors for us and lock us in there in the middle of the night. We wound up not meeting him that night, and it was like a whole thing. Like we didn't even think we were going to be able to do it. And this contact stumbled onto us later, 3 weeks later. But anyway, so the next day I'm doing a live stream on Facebook, and I'm like, hey guys, we're here in the, in the Giza plateau here, and blah, 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 blah. And all of a sudden it starts raining, and I look at her and I'm like, it's raining. Shit. Oh, excuse me. It's raining. Shoot. Wait a minute. We're in the middle of the Sahara Desert here. It's not supposed to be raining.
It doesn't rain in Cairo.
On that night started a 3-day historic flood.
Yep.
That was knocking over bridges, knocking over buildings. People were getting fired from the government because they weren't prepared for this flood. Like it was amazing. You can see the video. Type in Cairo flood.
April
2018.
Yeah.
That was the day after. We did our initial energy work in the pyramid.
Yep.
So we go to the Temple of Hatshepsut, and I'm thinking to myself, and everybody on Facebook is like, yes, we made it rain. We made it rain with our energy. We made it rain.
We make it rain.
And so everybody on Facebook was just like all cheering and all. They were all right there. And so we go to the Temple of Hatshepsut, and I'm in the experience, and I'm looking up at the sky, and it's a gorgeous blue sky. And I'm like, oh, I don't think it's gonna rain here. You know, I'm like, Isis, if you're here with us, show us a sign that you're here with us. Make it rain here. And it hasn't rained there in 10 freaking years. So we get out of the experience, and we're the last ones in the temple. And so it was the weirdest thing. We've got like 2 cops in front of us, 2 behind us, and they're walking us down escorting us down this long stairway. And I'm like, this is how you do it.
Yeah, this is how it's done.
I'm like, here's the royal guards.
The royal guards are here.
So we're live streaming all this on top of that,
we're on live streaming.
Even crazier. So we get back to the hotel. Once we get up to the hotel, all of a sudden, boom, it starts to come down. We're filming this on Facebook. Our hotel room is facing the Nile. Boats are flipping over in the Nile. Power lines are falling down.
The windstorm was so bad. It was really bad.
A huge windstorm just passes through. Everybody on Facebook again is going, yes, look what we did. And I'm like, guys, there's a possibility this is all coincidence. They're like, no, it's not coincidence. No. We did this. I'm like, okay, if that's what y'all think, cool, let's do it. Cool. Let's do it again. Yeah. So we go to Abydos. Yeah. So we're live streaming at Abydos. Abydos is 2.5 hours in the middle
of the desert.
And the taxi driver, he goes, I have a feeling like it's going to rain today. It hasn't rained in 15 years. And I go, yeah, maybe it will. We go over to the Temple of Osiris, which is right behind Abydos. It's the Osirian, the ancient one that Abydos was built around. Yeah. We go, we start doing some humming, we start doing some meditating, things like that with everybody on Facebook. Starts raining in Abydos. On live stream. Everybody's like, yes, look, we're bringing the rain to the desert. And I'm like, all right, guys, if you think it's more than coincidence, that's what you think. Okay, let's roll with it. 3 in a row. what the heck do you make of that, Rex? Because I still can't figure it out.
So was this after Isis?
No, this was before we went
This
to
is
the temple.
before we
of
went to
Isis.
the temple at Philae.
This was after the
Yeah.
temple. This was after the ceremony at the temple of Hatshepsut.
Yeah, the
Well,
temple
I
of
mean,
Hatshepsut.
Interesting. Interesting.
So we'd go. So after all of this, then we go down to Aswan and we go to the temple of Isis. And this time we had the entire temple completely to ourselves. And so
This is on the island of Philae.
so you have to go on a boat.
Uh-huh.
And they had everything all prepared for us. There was a boat, there was a car that came and picked us up at midnight, you know, all of this stuff. And we went to the temple pitch black.
Oh, it was so hard.
And, you know, I don't know if they knew what we were doing. I'm pretty sure they did, because we get to the temple and we've got this all on video. If you go to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/beyondtheveil, you can see the videos from the temple of Hatshepsut, the ayahuasca ceremony. And then you can see the temple of Isis ayahuasca ceremony there. And we've got some raw footage there. So we walk into the temple pitch black and I'm on live stream again. And I'm like, we're going to light this place up. And they told me that they were going to turn the lights on.
Right.
And I look at my contact and I say, are you going to turn the lights on? Because I want to get this on camera. He goes, not for what you're about to do.
Yep.
And I said, oh my God, that is so awesome. So we're walking around the temple. We've got the lights. Luckily, we brought this high-powered light. So what we're capturing on cameras with this high-powered light, the footage is amazing because you can't go to these temples at night.
No,
nobody goes.
Nobody goes.
Can't get these you can't get these shots at night. It was remarkable. So I look at him on live stream. On top of that, take me to the inner sanctum. He goes, I know where you want to go.
I know where you want to go.
I want to show you the rest of the temple first. So we're looking at this, we're looking at that. He's doing a whole tour, and it's on live stream, so you can go to my Facebook and check it out. The whole tour of the temple of Isis in the dark.
In the dark.
So we get to the inner sanctum. So then he said, okay, I'm going to leave you to do whatever you need to do. And that's it.
I think they wanted to run away from the bats too, because there were bats.
Yeah, we walked
everywhere.
in and there were bats everywhere. There's 3 chambers in the inner sanctum. There's the immediate chamber in the center, which is the inner sanctum where we were going to do where
the altar is.
Ayahuasca.
Yeah.
You have on the left-hand side another one, and on the right-hand side another one. And this is where the priests would go through from one altar through the wall back into these 3 chambers. The bats were in the 2 chambers on the left and the right. There weren't any bats in the middle.
Not a single bat.
No. And this is all on video.
Yeah.
So everybody's like covering their eyes and everything. And I'm like, look how beautiful they are. This is a sign from her.
They're a good omen.
Look, she's here with us. If I can jump back for a minute, when it started raining, at all these different places, I was on live stream again and I was bawling and I was crying and I was like, she is in the water. She's in the water. The water is the life. She is the water. The desert is set. The desert is desolate.
Winds,
it's
destruction.
no life. It smelled horrible too. She's in the water, and that's why she's bringing the waters. So we knew instinctively when we went to the temple of Isis. First of all, the night before, I asked the taxi driver to take me to the Nile. And I got in the water completely naked too, on top of that. And he's looking at me like I'm nuts. Yeah. And I'm like, no, I need to baptize myself. For lack of a better term, it's not a religious thing, but I need to cleanse myself with the Nile water.
Yeah.
So we took a big bottle of Nile water with us. So we blessed the altar, which you're not even allowed to touch during the day. They have like 4 people there. You're not allowed to even touch this.
You're not allowed to touch anything. Usually.
We blessed it. We reclaimed the temple. And the condition was that we would not film the actual ayahuasca ceremony in the temple of Isis and the Great Pyramid, because these are the 2 most locked down places in Egypt.
Yeah.
And those were our 2 targets. Instinctively, we knew when we got there, they said, these are the 2 most regulated lockdown places. There's a lot of leeway in other places, but these are the 2 most locked down. And he said, you can film anything you want, just don't film the actual
ayahuasca
ritual
ceremony. Yeah.
So what we did instead is we took our ayahuasca and we placed it on the altar, and we just did a shot like that on live stream. And we said, everybody, we want you to infuse this with really positive energy. It's nothing more than Egyptian tea. That's all it is. And that was that. So we turn off the live stream. Then we had the 4K camera. 4K cameras taking up much more footage than the live stream. So we cheated a little bit,
A
but
little,
I wanted to respect, you know,
yeah.
the
The person that got us in there is an amazing guy, and we're so thankful we have
yeah,
him.
yeah. And
Yeah.
so we didn't want to jeopardize, because
his career.
his connections are high level government and things like
Right.
that, and we don't want to,
Jeopardize that.
jeopardize him and all that. So it was phenomenal that we were able to do this ceremony within the Temple of Isis. In the Temple of Isis, I was shown where the reset button is, how to get to the reset button, and what the reset button does. And I was traveling up. I don't know how deep you want me to get, because I was on another show recently and we got really deep, and they're like, whoa, 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 this is too deep. You're going too deep.
Yeah.
So I guess I'll just speak briefly. And if anybody wants the full story, you can go to youtube.com/beyond the veil. But it was traveling up into these different dimensions. Before the experience started, though, I was completely infected with all of these implants. I don't know if you've had people on your show talking about these spiritual implants before, but she's looking at me and she's like, we're sitting in the Holy of Holies. I'm touching the altar, and she's looking at me and she's like, you are covered in implants. And she's like, I have to remove them.
Mm-hmm.
And so she starts one at a time, one at a time, one at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And which one? There was the one here.
Yeah, there was some in his head first, and then I got those out first, and those were easy to get out, no problem at all. But then there was it was almost like it was a piece of technology implanted into his heart, and it was covering his heart and grabbing it with like these, it looked like a hand, except it's like a technology hand that's grabbing onto his heart like this. And so well,
at the time I was hitting brick walls as I was going in these experiences, and I'm like,
couldn't get further.
I can't go any deeper. I don't know what's wrong with me. I can't go any deeper. And she's like, I got to remove all these first.
Yeah.
And she starts removing them one at a time, and then she couldn't get the heart one, and I'm fading off into the experience, and I'm like, I can't go any deeper for some reason. And she's like, okay, I can't get this last one, but you go and get the information that we need. Come back. And I'm like, no, I can't go with this. I need you to remove it. I give you permission to remove it. The permission was important.
Yeah.
Because when I gave her the permission, then she was able to actually remove it. So we have these spiritual implants that we agree to, and the only way to get rid of them is by us making that statement. I give you permission to remove them, or I no longer want them. I want them removed. I'm removing it from myself, however you want to go about it. But a lot of these energies that we find ourselves tied into, we've actually made agreements on a subconscious or spiritual level.
Right.
But realizing that we've made those agreements, realizing that those implants are there, or negative energies are there, or anything like that, it goes right back to what I was saying before. We have the ultimate power in all of this. But we're being tricked to believe that we don't, because we're agreeing to all this on one level or another.
Right.
So after that, boom, flood of memories, past lives, everything like that. I realized that I had this experience, this ayahuasca experience, several years ago, and I was shown through the eyes of all these people that were being executed. And I'm like, why am I seeing this over and over and over again? Being nailed to a tree, being hung from a tree, being shot execution style, all of this stuff. And I'm like, and it was the same vision repeating, except through different eyes. And the eyes would experience the death, then the soul would go to this abyss, which was like this swirling abyss. And the lesson being taught at the time was, look, you can navigate outside of this abyss. You don't have to go into this river. You can navigate, you can vibrate your frequency so high that when you get to this place, then you decide where you go. You can go back into the wheel of reincarnation, or you can go up and out. You can do whatever you want, as long as you're vibrating higher than the frequency of the abyss. Well, at the Temple of Isis, when the flood of memories came back in, I realized, crap, those were my past lives.
Yep.
I was executed in many, 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 many lives, but it also gave me the roadmap. And I remembered, in this lifetime I did this, in this lifetime I did this, in this lifetime I did this. We embedded information in these stones. This is how you get this information out, and just so on and so forth, up to the point of remembering. I remember what we did with the reset button. We hit it in the 12th dimension. So I go up to the 12th dimension, the doors are unlocking one after another. I'm vibrating at the right frequency. Everything is falling in line perfect. I get to the place where we left it. There's this box. I open up the box and it's gone.
And it's gone.
And I'm in the Holy of Holies yelling, F, 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 F. And she's like, what are you effing about? And I'm like, the effing Grays got it. And she's like, they got what? They got the button. They got the control panel. It was the craziest scene that you've ever seen in your life. And she's like, no, they didn't. I remember what we did with it. We took it to the 13th density.
Yeah.
We had to move it up because the Grays figured out how to shift up and down in frequency. And since they figured it out, we had to hide it from them in a place that they couldn't access.
Right.
When we hit it in the 13th density, we created the pyramid as a booster rocket to
get
lift
there.
consciousness up and out into the 13th density. Now, in this Temple of Isis, she was showing me the pyramid is your booster rocket. Go to the pyramid. You will be able to access that by going to the pyramid. And I was touching the stone, and I was touching the stone as I was touching the stone, energy was coming through and coming out, but it wasn't going anywhere because that stone wasn't meant for energy to move through. But it was showing me this is what you need to do at the pyramid. And so we're live streaming afterwards and we're like, oh my God, guys, you have no idea what's going on. So we've got video fresh out of this experience. And again, if the listeners want to believe that this is a psychedelic experience and nothing more, you have to admit at the very least, it's the most epic psychedelic experience in the world.
Ever.
Or there was some hardcore energy work done, which can take us to the pyramid if you want to segue to that, or if you have questions, take us away.
Dude, where's my car? This is even better than that. This is way better. This is like, dude, what cosmos am I in? Yeah. So let's go to the next level. So what experience you want to share with us next? And I'm just amazed, man. I'm enjoying listening to this experience. This is fantastic. You're fighting Grays. You get to meet Isis. You almost get kidnapped twice by the other Isis that is, not the good Isis. Oh my goodness. I mean, you can't make this stuff up, folks. It's exciting.
Well, it's live streamed. I would not be telling
this
story.
Live stream.
I would not be telling this story if we didn't have the videos to back it up.
Right.
Because this sounds insane.
It sounds absolutely insane.
But we have the videos to back it up. So
we've got it covered.
I did see Isis there. That was the first thing that I saw. Isis in her true form. And this angelic writing that appeared. It was actually pretty remarkable.
Ooh,
oh, beautiful.
That is beautiful.
Beautiful.
When I was at the Temple of Hatshepsut, I drank ayahuasca, and I thought that he was going to have more for himself. And so I actually took about 3 times the normal dose, and just went completely into another dimension. And where I went was beautiful. It was, I was on a boat, and there were these beings beside me. One of them looked like a ram-headed guy, and then there's a beautiful woman. I thought she was Isis, but actually she turned out to be Hecate. And she's actually in the Egyptian pantheon under a different name. And
oh, beautiful.
They were walking me up this
there's the boat
thing. Yep, there's the boat. Yep, I was on a boat, and then there was this yellow thing.
Was it like this? Was it like one of these boats?
It was exactly like that, and it was beautiful. Everything was gold and pink and red.
Well, let me jump in for a second, because at the Temple of Hatshepsut, and I'm sorry for jumping around, but there's details that are kind of important. She was going into this state that I've never seen her before.
Yeah.
And her eyes were rolling in the back of her head, and she was tensing up almost as if she was going to have a seizure.
It was too much.
I came this close to going and getting an ambulance because she was in a very distressed state. Yeah. And she's like, I'm sorry, baby. I love you.
Die.
I can't. I'm going to die. This is where the journey ends. She was saying all this, and I was getting genuinely concerned. And then something came over me and said, no, do the opposite. Do the opposite. And I looked at her and I held her and I said, Sheree, I said, I'm going to hold you here to the ground. Okay. You need to go to a mentee, and you need to get the information that we need and come back. And all of a sudden she went limp. eyes
calm.
rolled in the back of the head, and she's boom, just like that in my arms. And I could feel her heart had stopped. And I'm like going, okay, Isis, we're here. We're doing what needs to be done. You need to do what needs to be done too. You need to bring her back safely. And I'm holding her. And while I'm holding her, this is what she's experiencing.
Yeah. And as soon as I let the body go, I mean, because that's a normal thing for an ayahuasca experience, is letting the body go. But for some reason, it felt like I was literally going to die in this experience, and it would just end everything. And I was so scared of that. But then whenever he told me that he was going to hold me there and make sure that I was okay, that gave me permission to just let go completely. And suddenly I'm on this boat with these two beings, like I said, and they were leading me off of the boat and up this ramp. And then these other beings came in front of me, and there were so many of them that I couldn't even differentiate between them. Like, okay, and you're this one and you're that one. I was just so overwhelmed. And they came with like this, they raised this thing up and started showing me how to write from right to left. And it was just beautiful language that I'd never seen anything so beautiful in my life. And it was like a heavenly language that they were teaching me how to write. And they said, this is what you do. This is what you do. You take this information back. You give this information to the people, and then you get that information from the people and you bring it back up here, and, you work here. And, then I saw our story about, who our ancient souls are. And then as I came back, I'm laughing, and he's like, oh, I'm so glad you're back, but why are you laughing? And I'm like, oh, it's just so beautiful over there. And it's so obvious what we need to do from here on out is we ground each other. I'm nothing without you. And I feel like, you're nothing without me. We're, we come as a unit.
This was so important.
Yeah.
At the pyramid. So that's what we're getting up to here, is the pyramid itself. I needed to be able to see her in that state and ground her.
Right.
Because I was going to be in that state in the sarcophagus.
Right.
And she needed to be able to experience what I was experiencing when I was shaking, convulsing, when my heart stopped.
Yeah.
And it did several times, and I'll get to that here in just a moment. And she needed to be able to ground me, to bring me back, because going into the 13th density was intense.
Yeah.
It's not something that we're supposed to do. I mean, this is like extreme circumstances, emergency in the matrix.
Yeah.
Utilize this machine, break the glass, and go up there, and hopefully you'll come back. But I didn't think I was going to come back. I was telling everybody that I loved them. I wasn't telling them anything.
Not publicly.
I was just letting them know, hey, I really want you to know how much I appreciate you. We have TFR. It's all run on automation and stuff. I made a whole document while we're in Egypt and gave it to her. And I'm like, look, here's a document, how everything runs. Here's a couple of programmers you can contact who will be familiar with this documentation. Give it to them so things can keep going. And we had a long talk.
Yeah.
And I said, look, this is a very important thing. If I need to break the tether while I'm there, I have to do it. And it's nothing, I have to do it. The mission is more important than anything else.
Oh, I cried my eyes out.
Yeah, we went through this whole, process of coming to terms with the fact that one of us may not come back from the situation.
Right.
So the night of the pyramid, we go to this little shop, and the traditional tea there is hibiscus tea. And so they give us some hibiscus tea, and it's just normal hibiscus tea, no problem.
I even have a second glass because, it's so good. It tastes so good, and it's so hot there that it felt good.
Except for she's allergic to sulfites.
And it had a large amount of sulfites in it.
And we didn't know this. So
about an hour.
Come about 9 o'clock at night, her face blows up. Her throat
is swelling up.
And I'm like, oh crap. And I'm calling my contact. Can we do this on a different night? No,
No,
can't
we've
do this
already
on a
set it
night.
up.
We've already set it up.
It's either
There are
tonight or
too
no
many
night.
strings being pulled here for you guys to do this. It's
Mhm.
it's now or never. So we're rushing to pharmacies trying to find her the shot.
We went to 5 different
Yeah,
ones.
and all of them were like, go to the
Go to the
hospital. Go to the
hospital.
hospital. No, we know what we need. We finally found one
That would give me a
pharmacy
shot.
that would give her the shot that she needs. They gave her the shot. And we're standing in the street outside of the pharmacy. And she's like, I don't think I can do this. And I'm like, you know what? You're more important than anything to me. And so if you can't do it, we're not going to do it. And then what happened?
And then I felt something rub against my leg. And I thought, oh, what is that? Because in Cairo, you have no idea what you're dealing with if something's rubbing up against your leg. And I look down and it's this little kitten. It's like a year-old kitten. And I pet it. And as I pet it, it transmitted energy to me and it said, everything's going to be okay. We're with you. The Egyptian pantheon is with you. They will be with you through the whole thing. The only thing you need to do is ground him. And
it was a representation.
It was a representation of Bastet, the cat goddess.
And so we go back to the hotel. She lays down for a couple of hours. We were able to push
a couple of hours back.
We were able to push it a couple of hours back to give her a little bit more
time to recover.
And we go to the pyramid at about midnight. And so the energy was totally different.
Oh yeah.
There was nobody there except for our group. There were, the security and, all these other people, but that's all that there was. And for the first time, I felt the energy of the pyramid, the way that it's supposed to be, without the street vendors, without people asking you if you want a camel ride every 10 minutes, nothing like that. And it was the most remarkable energy. And I could feel it as we were walking to it. And we've got some cool footage of walking up to the pyramid at night. And then we get inside of the pyramid. And they unlock all the chambers for us. And the guy looks at me and he says, all right, go do what you need to do. Subterranean chamber is that way. Queen's chamber is that way. King's chamber is that way. So we venture down. First thing, I'm excited. I'm like on fire. There was something about the energy of the pyramid that just snapped with us. And we both just on fire at that point. And the subterranean chamber is, I don't know the distance, but I want to say it's something like several hundred meters.
Oh, yeah.
Down into the ground.
Going down's not a problem because you just kind of go backwards and you're scooting down.
In this 3.5 foot.
In a 3x3, probably 3x4.
Yeah.
Foot.
And so you're hunched down like this the whole way. So we've got our backpack and everything trying to get down to the subterranean chamber, and we're just zooming down there because we're like, oh my God, we're going to the subterranean chamber. This is amazing.
So we're backing ourselves forward really.
The video's on our YouTube channel. So if anybody wants to check it out after the show, youtube.com/beyondtheveil. So we get down there. And then we start filming the subterranean chamber, and we start doing humming and stuff like that in there. And we did some off-camera type of rituals. And in the Temple of Isis, I realized we have to go to all 3 chambers. It doesn't work with just one chamber. It's got to be the ascension process. Descending was no problem at all.
No problem at all. Easy.
Ascension was where the work comes in.
Yep.
So we're ascending now, back up, trying to get to the Queen's chamber. So you get up this tunnel, right? And you get up to this little area, and then you go up another tunnel, which is not nearly as long.
Right.
And then you get to the Grand Gallery. So the Grand Gallery is a set of staircases. Well, it's not really stairs, but it's inclines, but you can at least stand up as you're walking up towards the King's chamber. Well, directly in front, when we first got to the pyramid, there was this gated area, and I was drawn to this gated area, and we were doing a video in front of this, and we were in front of the gated area going, there's something behind here, I'm not sure, but we need to get through this door.
There were a few places like that.
Yeah. And come to find out, that was the entrance to the Queen's chamber. Now we get into the Queen's chamber and we find something remarkable. We find the reason why they have closed off the Queen's chamber and the subterranean chamber to the public.
There's a huge
because there
reason.
is something going on over there, and we got it on film. Now, I don't mean to leave the audience hanging, But this is the one piece of information that we have to save for the film that we're working on at resettingthematrix.com. It's a free film. We're not.
I knew you were trying to sell me something. Wait, it's free? Oh my goodness!
No. If there's anything,
that was probably an expensive trip. I can't even imagine how much that must have cost you to do all that.
It was a lot. If there's one way you want to support us, we have Aya Life. Aya Life is an infusion of CBD and extract from the ayahuasca vine. It's non-psychoactive, and people have been raving about it on Facebook. Like, they're saying that it's the first time that they've used something that works for like their tennis elbow, and they're no longer having to take NSAIDs. I don't want to turn this into a plug for Aya Life, but I did want to mention it. If you do want to support Beyond the Veil, Aya Life is the way to do it.
That's the way to do it.
Because we like to give you something if you're going to support us. We don't like to just take, we like to give as well. So, Aya Life, AYALife.com is where you can read more about that. And consequently enough, in the subterranean chamber, we were sending out all these crystals to people because we needed to create an energetic network. And we were dropping these crystals literally everywhere. We've got one in the Temple of Hatshepsut, one in the subterranean chamber, one in the Queen's chamber, one in the King's chamber. No, we don't have one in the King's chamber because there was nowhere to put it. We've got one in Dendera. We've got one in Abydos. We've got one in Luxor, literally everywhere.
Yeah.
And we were sending out the crystals with the orders of the Aya Life, and we still have plenty of the crystals left that are energetically connected.
And the reason why we're doing this, and the reason why we think we thought it was an energy network that we were creating, is because of how crystals have non-locality. So if you take a big crystal and you break it up into a bunch of different pieces and then send those pieces out, all of those crystals are all going to be connected to one another. And then what happens with one crystal is going to affect all the other crystals. And so knowing that, we did this.
Yes. We didn't realize that we knew there was information in the stones. We knew we had to go get it. When we came back, Christopher Everard, I don't know if you've ever had him on, but he's a great Egyptologist. He wrote a book called Stone Age Psychedelia, which we realized a lot of the temples were actually modeled after psychedelic mushrooms. You look at the columns and they're modeled after psychedelic mushrooms. You find motif after motif of the pharaohs and the priests drinking a liquid that comes out of the acacia tree, which is what we make the ayahuasca out of. And I mean, you've even got motifs of the goddess coming out of the tree and literally pouring it into the mouth of little birds that have human heads, and they're turning into these, I'm like, oh wow, the acacia. And the acacia is the burning bush from the Bible. The acacia is the center point of Freemasonry. Osiris was, Set trapped Osiris in a coffin that was made out of acacia. Then he chopped his body up into 13 pieces. He buried him under an acacia tree. Osiris and Isis are in the acacia, which we didn't know about until after we started working with the acacia, which made it even that much more real for us.
Yeah.
So I don't mean to jump around so much, but the acacia is very important. So we go down to the subterranean chamber. Now we're ascending up to the Queen's chamber. We get to the Queen's chamber, we step outside. Again, we have this video on our YouTube page. I'm sitting there and I'm smoking a cigarette. And I know you shouldn't be smoking cigarettes inside of the pyramid. We've been chastised for it many times by many
You heathen.
Watching
it was
videos.
a rough night.
But we were there as mechanics. We were there to start the system up. We were there working on a machine. We weren't there, going, oh wow, look how beautiful. No, we were like, all right, we know what this is. This is a machine. And we can get into that here. Well, let me just say this on a side note.
Yeah.
We went to several other pyramids. We went to the pyramid of Saqqara. You go down into the pyramid of Saqqara, there's a huge sarcophagus. There's several rooms. There's a burial room. There's a room.
Tomb.
There's tomb. It's a
stuff.
tomb. It's very clear. It's very easy to navigate. It's an open space. The Great Pyramid is a machine.
It is not a tomb.
It is not a tomb.
Never been a tomb.
One of the main things that we realize is that in all the tombs, including the pyramids, which are legitimately tombs, you have on the sky the duat, which is all the stars. And that is a recurring theme in every single temple.
Because they think that when they die, they thought that when they died, their spirit would go to the stars. It was like a reminder, hey, you're supposed to go here.
You have
none of that.
No writing in the Great Pyramid whatsoever.
At all.
The Great Pyramid is a device.
Yeah.
It's a device on several levels. The first level is the physical level. Water from the Nile used to come in through the bottom of the pyramid in the subterranean chamber And my theory and hypothesis is that somehow that water would go up to the Queen's chamber, where inside of the Queen's chamber, it would be heated up.
Yeah.
And that, or transformed into some other type of form. And then from the Queen's chamber up to the King's chamber, that will create the energy source that the Egyptians were using. All of these chambers all work together one after another. But what we notice in the Queen's chamber, which we'll release all the footage in the film, is that it seems to have what the only thing that I can describe as charred marks. In this one particular, it looks like a furnace.
Yeah.
There's no other way to look at it.
really
It looks like a
does.
furnace, and there's a tunnel right there where the furnace area is that goes straight down into the subterranean chamber.
It even looks like a chimney stack.
A chimney stack.
It
Yes.
really does.
Yes. So yeah, we can send you some pictures
Yeah.
of the Queen's chamber, but not the stuff that we found.
Yeah.
Because that's that's
We got to save
delayed.
that for the film.
So we get
Right.
out of the Queen's chamber, and all of a sudden, we hear the power
The
plant.
piece of power.
Exactly.
Exactly. Yes, it was a power plant, and it was used. It had a dual purpose. The first purpose was as a power plant. The second purpose was what we were going to do with it. So
I feel like we've been going on and on and on.
we're not letting.
No,
you
this is great. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to seeing the full video. I can't wait to go there. And I've left your link to your YouTube channel in the video description box. I've also left it several times in the chat box.
Thank you.
And the last question I was going to ask you guys is because you seem so happy together and all, and you're just wanted to make sure you had an opportunity to practice this giving mouth ceremony in the.
Mwah.
We have lots of experience with that.
Hello.
Let me finish the pyramid story. So we get outside of the Queen's chamber, and we have this video on our. It's called "Humming in the Great Pyramid."
Humming in the Great Pyramid.
We noticed this
It's like a
throughout the pyramid. Now we're the only two people in the pyramid, and I'm like sitting there. I'm smoking the cigarette, and I'm like, "Do you hear that?" And she's like, "Yeah, it's coming
that
from
came out of nowhere.
It's coming from there. No, wait, it's coming from no, wait, it's coming from the Queen's chamber."
Where
All of a
is it coming
sudden,
from?
it's like, and we're like, "Oh my God, this thing is activated." It was, just check out the video.
turned
The
on.
video is unedited, and the sound, all the sound, like our voices and the sound is really low. So you got to turn up your speakers because we didn't mess with it at all. We just recorded it and uploaded it. In the film, we'll do the whole audio adjustment and all that. But, it was the most bizarre thing.
Yeah.
And we couldn't figure out what the source of this wind noise,
was.
humming, was in the pyramid. So we trek all the way up to the King's chamber.
Which was easier, but
And I'm
so
just
hard.
like, oh my God. Ascension is very difficult.
Difficult process.
It's easy to go down in frequency, but it takes a lot of work to go up in frequency. So we get to the King's chamber, and I'm just like amazed because we're by ourselves. Nobody's even in the grand gallery. Everybody's waiting literally outside. And I'm like, we can do this finally. And we start the and just start raising it, and just start shaking the room. And
he would do a hum, and then and whenever he ran out of breath, I would keep the hum going. And then when I ran out of breath, he'd keep the hum going. So it was just this constant back and forth, stacking it on top of each other.
But we were starting to run out of time.
Yeah.
And so we couldn't sit there and play too long. And so at that point, we just said, okay, we did a toast to everybody on camera with our Egyptian tea, and said, thank you for being with us, this energy, all this, et cetera, et cetera. And then I drank 4 times as much that I've ever drank before. So these are really, really, really big doses. And we get in the sarcophagus, and I'm sitting in the sarcophagus, and all of a sudden I can start floating up higher and higher and higher. And I was expecting a rocket ship, because it was ISIS was saying this is a propeller. It's a propeller system, and I was expecting, boom, blast off. But it wasn't like that at all. It was like swimming. That's the only way that I can describe it. It was like swimming and wading through all this. I got up to the 12th dimension very, very quick.
Yeah.
But once I hit that 12th dimension and popped out of the 12th dimension, all of a sudden there was this huge void, and I didn't know what I was looking for. I could see this small light out in the way, way, way distance. And I was like, pushing to try to get to this light. And I'm like, okay, we must be going to the reset button. It must be a little button like this that we can just touch, and it works. But the closer I was getting to it, the bigger it was getting. And then I realized that I'm inside of a pyramid. Now, I'm not only in the Great Pyramid, but I'm inside of an interdimensional ethereal pyramid that was being projected up out of the pyramid. And I'm confused at this point because I'm like, this is supposed to be a rocket ship, but it took all of my force, all of my might to finally get here. When I finally got there, what were you doing?
Well, I noticed at first I noticed that he was having a hard time altogether, getting even to anywhere. And so I said, oh, well, remember when we were at the Temple of Philae, and whenever you would touch anything but me, it would make the vision stop.
Well, it was making them gray.
It was making them gray and blurry. And so I said, we need to touch each other while you do this.
Yeah. And so instead of touching the sarcophagus, now I start touching her.
I crawl into the sarcophagus with him, and he's on one side of the sarcophagus, and I'm up, scrunched up like on the other side. And I've got my hands on his knees, and I noticed that his heart rate increased dramatically.
Probably
as things
180
went on,
somewhere like that. Yeah.
And I could tell he was really struggling. And I was told at the Temple at Philae that while he had to go up the pyramid, I had to be the upside down pyramid going down. So as high as he needed to go up, that was as low as I needed to descend.
So we were creating
downwards.
a Merkaba.
We were creating a Merkaba. And this is just, I had never even thought of doing this. This came to me as instructions at the Temple at Philae. And so I start snaking my way down while he's going up, and the tether between my tether is it's almost like I was pushing him by stretching downwards. I mean, the further I stretched downwards was the higher he was able to go. And so it was this weird synchronous movement we had going on, and he would swim a little bit higher and I'd go a little bit lower, and then we'd have to stop, take a break for a second, then he'd go higher and higher and I'd go lower and lower. And there was at one point that he said, I can't reach it, you're going to have to do it for me. I said, sweetie, I'm way on the opposite side, I can't do anything to help you right now. And he said, I don't think I'm going to come back. And I was like, oh, you better come back. And
well, it was at that point, my heart was just going out of control. And I finally was able to reach it. But when I started reaching it, my body was shaking in convulsions.
Yeah.
And so I could feel my body at the same time while I was here. And
he was knocking his knees against the side of the sarcophagus, and I'm trying to hold on to him.
Bruises on my knees, bruises on her.
Yeah.
Because I was smacking her around too as I was having these convulsions.
Arms.
But I saw the control panel, and I knew exactly what to do. I just boom, 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 started it's almost like my 13th dimensional self just like took over and knew exactly what needed to be done. But I realized the longer that I stayed in there, I could feel my body, that it was saliva was coming out of my mouth, and I could feel the tether breaking. And I was like, if I stay here for too long, this thing's going to break and I'm not going to be able to get back. I have to remember Sheree. Don't forget about Sheree, because this reality was gone. There was no 3D. There was no Chris Geo. There was nothing like that. There was only the 13th dimensional self doing what it needed to do.
Yeah.
And then I started to realize, wait a minute. Okay. If I remember Sheree, then I can send commands back to my body, and I can make my body stop, because shaking and convulsing and seizures equals body damage. I don't want to do that. I don't want to break that. I need to calm the body down by sending these commands back to the body. And so I'm like sending these commands through this spiritual tether. Stop seizing, calm down, lower your heart rate, things like that. But the further I stayed in that dimension, the more that my body was just shaking and shaking and shaking. Oh my God. I'm like,
I know.
I'm reliving all of this.
I'm sweating profusely even thinking about this.
So we got the system inputs put into the system and reset the artificial intelligence that was in this other dimension that needed a reboot. And so I come back and I'm crying. I'm like, oh my God, we did it. I'm like, it's been so long. I just want to rest. And this was my 13th dimensional self now. I just want to rest. And she's like, baby, we did it. You can rest. You can rest. And then all of a sudden, boom, this negative energy just comes down on me and I'm shaking violently again. And it's like all of the virus, all of the suffering, all of everything that was being deleted and removed from the system was now coming through the matrix, through the sarcophagus, up and out. And it was like we were the
conduit,
the fuses. We were like
we were
the
like
fuses in the king's chamber. I mean, in the sarcophagus, pushing all this energy through.
I was pulling all of that through me from the depths of the minus 13th dimension up through me, then through him, and then up and out.
I wasn't prepared for this.
Yeah.
My body was not able to handle this. I'm amazed that we came out of the experience. And then finally, after about half an hour of this shaking and convulsing and everything and banging all over the place, and it finally calmed down again. And then I was like, okay, I think it's over. It's over. I wasn't prepared for what happened after that. Now comes the positive charge.
Yeah.
And now, energy's coming from the 13th dimension into the matrix, and the system changes are taking place. And I'm shaking and shaking again. And I'm like, no, I can control this. I can control this. I can calm the body down, and I can do what I need to do. And at that point, then all of a sudden I was able to see in the 13th dimension better, and I could see these screens in front of me, and these screens were just reading all these different codes. And it was like boom, 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 green, boom, 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 green, boom, 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 green, clear of infection here, clear of infection there, clear of infection there, clear of infection there. And then we came back, and I'm like, oh my God. And she's like, it's over. It's over. We did it. We did what we, to us, and again, to the listeners, it may just be an elaborate psychedelic experience. And if it is, that's fine. But to us, this was a plan that's been in the work for 10,000 years. And it was the completion of a 10,000-year plan with so many lifetimes led, so much suffering, so much pain to get to that moment in time.
So much death.
And when we did, it was like, I was ready to go. I was like, there's nothing more for me here. And then I looked at her and I'm like, this is why I'm coming back. I can't leave her here by herself. So I came back for her. And then we're just laughing maniacally in the king's chamber. And I look up, and they had sent somebody up there. And you've got somebody, there's this Muslim guy sitting over there in the corner, and he's looking at us like we're freaking crazy.
I think they were just glad that we weren't having sex in there.
That was the one thing.
You were shaking it up in there, all right. They're like, the whole thing's shaking. You probably blew his mind. He's probably watching what you're all doing, and he's like, whoa,
I wonder how much an outside person would be able to see walking in.
I have no idea what they were thinking. He was just sitting there smoking a cigarette, and we're like,
and staring at it.
Well, he wasn't staring at us because he was sitting down, and we were in the sarcophagus.
Right.
But it was, I don't know what he must have been thinking, and I wasn't even aware that he was there. Yeah. And so the last part of this was happening with somebody in the room.
Yeah.
And then finally he's like, all right, it's time.
It's time for us to open.
And we walk outside, and we're like, I look down in the grand gallery, I took a photo, and I'm like, look, let me just smoke a cigarette. He's like, no. Everybody's been waiting for you outside.
Yep.
We got to go now. And so
you've had your 4 hours.
I took a little video, and I'm like, now we will return to the land of mortals. And I'm stumbling down the grand gallery. And we're just laughing maniacally. We step outside, and there's a huge windstorm, and we're like, yes, it is done.
And
now,
when we came outside, the energy seemed to have been completely changed.
The NPCs walking around, they didn't seem to be walking around in loops, or they seemed confused.
Yeah.
Like there was peace in the street. There was calmness everywhere.
Yeah.
And we're like, is
this the same Cairo? Is this the same Cairo that we were just at yesterday, where people were honking at each other and craziness was going on and people were yelling at each other? None of that. It was just like calmness, complete calmness. And we've noticed that ever since, that the same people that would have driven other people nuts are now not nearly as bad. And that's because after the reset was hit, it cleared the infection, And so
well, it's clearing the infection.
Yeah, it's clearing
The
infection.
reset, and we've never talked about this before, so you're getting the first information here. I think we mentioned it on the live stream right after, but we only had a small amount of people watching the live stream, the ones that were like really, following everything. But the reset's going to take 4 minutes and 7 seconds, which comes out to about 4 years and a month or something like that. I don't know. I got to do the math.
No, I did the math, and it was 4 years, 4 months.
4 years and 4 months.
Yeah.
Okay. So 4 years and 4 months. No, 4 years and 4 months would be like 15 seconds. Yeah, it's somewhere around there, about 4 years and a month or two, give or take. And so during this next 4 years, things are starting to fall back into balance. NPCs are having the virus removed from their consciousness, and it gives us as organic consciousness the opportunity to remove the veil from our eyes, reach down inside of us, and really remember who we are.
Yeah. And
I hope that things go back to a place of balance. There's supposed to be struggle, there's supposed to be strife, there's supposed to be tribulations. But these struggles and strife and tribulations are supposed to be experiences that we learn and grow from, not experiences that destroy our souls. And what we've been enduring here in this matrix, our souls have been being destroyed. I mean, you know the thing with the pizza and the kids,
and we're fed
all the government atrocities, all of this stuff. This is all a result of that virus, and that's ultimately what we were there in Egypt to try to remove from the matrix. Now, again, if the listeners want to just think that this is a huge psychedelic experience, that's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
To us, I leave 0.1% doubt in my mind that it is a psychedelic experience, because I always want to be skeptical. I always want to leave that doubt in my mind. But the other 99.9% says something huge happened on the energetic network, on the energetic level, and the matrix was reset. And you can get the film at resettingthematrix.com.
Wow, that's what I'm talking about. And ladies and gentlemen, don't forget to subscribe Beyond the Veil on YouTube as well. This is great. Really appreciate you guys coming on the show. The energy is off the hook. I'm reading through the comments, and 99% amazing comments. There's always that one person that is so depressed and so jealous and just so miserable with life that they have to, attempt to be trollish, but they tried, they failed miserably. And wow, we got to do this again. Thank you so much for coming on the program. This was just awesome. So I'm a huge fan as well.
Let me say, your show is awesome.
Yes.
Love everything you do, and you are an amazing host. I feel like we didn't let you jump in too much, though, so I apologize if we took the floor. But
we love the Leak Project.
Thank you so much, man. Thank you for everything that you do.
Well, thank you. If I would have talked more, it would have just messed up the interview. So that was perfect. No, this is amazing. I had a blast and really enjoyed it, and so did the audience. We'll definitely do this again. Glad you made it out of there safe. Glad you're still alive. Glad you didn't get beheaded or held hostage or something like that. And thank you for resetting the matrix. I appreciate that. Geez, it sounds to me like you had to go through hell and back. So you're here, and your energy together. I think it took both of you. I think you're like the yin and the yang of the machine that needed to be reset. It needed both of you to do it. I don't think one of you could have done it. So you're
and we each played our parts. When I saw Isis at the Temple of Isis, I looked at her and I said, "Are you ready for what's about to happen? Because I'm ready." She didn't tell me, "Are you ready?" I told her, "Are you ready? Because I'm fulfilling my end of the bargain." And she says, "Don't worry, I'm fulfilling my end too." And it was, like I said, it was everybody. It was everybody from the people that helped by getting ILife. It was the people that donated $5 to the GoFundMe.
Yeah.
It was the people that opened the doors. It was the flight attendants that made sure we were in the right seats at the right time. It was literally everybody coming together. And most importantly, it was the BTV family that created the energetic network that we needed in order to make this happen.
Yeah.
So we played a small role. We played a very difficult role, but there were so many more players in this, and this ancient soul mission has been completed.
Right on. Once again, appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, be excellent to each other. And I did want to let everybody know the updates. I got an update for Johnny, little Johnny, that his father and his mom, they're Leak Project listeners, and several months ago, their son was diagnosed with leukemia. So, you know, he was going through a lot of troubles here in the States, and the father wanted him to try an alternative treatment in Australia. So I got a message from him. They're in Australia, and the first treatment went really well. They need to put him through another treatment right now as well, and they're struggling financially. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you can help out, I'll leave the GoFundMe link as well. And remember that I am going to offer the Wonder Woman painting, the fan art painting, as a whoever makes the largest donation, I'm just going to give that as a gift. And whoever makes the second largest donation, I'm going to give one of those Leak Project 5G limited edition handmade caps. And, I'll leave the link again as well. So there you go, everybody. And good energy their way, good energy your way. All right.
Can I leave the audience with something? First of all, I want everybody to focus right now. Take 30 seconds. Focus on Johnny's recovery. Focus that the treatment that he is getting is working. Imagine the energy. Imagine the matrix code of his body being changed and being realigned back into the way that it's supposed to be. When we come together and we do this collectively, we are first of all individuals. We're individual consciousness. We are individual creators. But when we unite, we're like Voltron.
Yeah.
So I want everybody to take a moment and focus the energy and intention and send it to them, and let this reality manifest in a way to where Johnny has a full recovery from whatever he's dealing with right now. And most importantly, that the treatments that he's going through have as little amount of pain as possible, because he must be in incredible pain. And the very least that we can do collectively is that we can help to remove some of that pain by putting our intentions into that. And there's so many people. There's 875 people watching right now. 875 people collectively doing this, plus the tens of thousands of people, if not hundreds of thousands of people that watch Leak Project when you're watching the archive. Focus and put your energy in this, and we're creating a big sphere of energy that Johnny is going to be able to pull from. So think about that and focus on that. The last thing that I want to leave you with now is the matrix was infected. Our consciousness was infected. There was a lot of problems that were external sources. Now that the virus is being removed, it's really up to each and every one of you to go deep into yourself, deep into your own consciousness, and find those negative thought patterns, find those virus thought patterns, find all of that and remove them from yourself, because now the battle is internal. The external battle is taken care of. But if we as organic consciousness do not remove the virus from within ourselves, it's only a matter of time before that small piece of cancer, that virus inside of the organic consciousness, spreads outwards to the machine again, and the machine gets infected. So this is the time that we need to man up. We need to look at our demons. We need to face down our demons. We need to realize that we are bigger than our demons, that our demons have no effect over us, and that the archons are completely and totally powerless.
That's
when
right.
we disconnect that power from them, and we realize that all they can do is put these negative thought patterns into us, and those negative thought patterns is what manifests negative realities for us. So manifest a positive reality for yourself, manifest a positive reality for Johnny, manifest a positive reality for excuse me, for Leak Project, manifest a positive reality for us all. It's all in your hands now.
Hey, that was said extremely well, and I guess I'll just leave it with this. You will not assimilate me, abracadabra.